Hello everyone. Welcome back to week 3 of our SHRM-CP study series. This week we're diving into the knowledge domains and we're starting with people today. People is arguably one of the most important and familiar areas for HR professionals. This domain is all about how we plan, develop, engage, and support the workforce. So I'll walk you through each functional area, break down key terms, and give real-world examples, and share tips for what SHRM is likely to test. Keep in mind, I'm not going over every single concept in there. I'm going to target the areas that I would like to focus on the most for my own studying. So for HR strategy, we have some key concepts I want to break down. So first, I want to look at approaches to project management and processes. So the key terms and definitions, we have Lean Six Sigma, which focuses on eliminating waste and reducing variation in processes. Agile, which is an iterative approach, adaptable to change and promotes collaboration. Critical Chain, which prioritizes resource availability when planning projects. Design Thinking, which is creative problem solving by empathizing, ideating, and prototyping. And Kaizen, or Kaizen, I'm not sure the pronunciation, is continuous incremental improvement involving all employees. So what does SHRM want from you? They want you to know when to apply different methods based on project context and understand these aren't just tech or ops tools, HR use them too. So for example, HR launches a new onboarding system using Agile, testing updates in short cycles. Or another example, a hotel redesigns its training process using design thinking workshops with frontline staff. So test tip, if a question involves innovation or user centricity, think design thinking. If it involves speed and flexibility, go agile. Next, we have project planning, monitoring, and reporting methods and tools. So some key terms and definitions, we have critical path analysis, which identifies the longest chain of dependent tasks that determine project duration. Gantt charts are a visual timeline for task scheduling. Variance analysis compares planned versus actual performance. And outcome monitoring is an ongoing evaluation of progress against desired results. SHRM wants you to understand how to keep HR initiatives on track and within scope, and they want you to be able to evaluate effectiveness, not just execution. So for example, you use a Gantt chart to roll out a new benefits program across multiple properties. Or maybe you use variance analysis to help adjust timelines after vendor delays. So test tip, keywords like tracking, progress, or compare actual versus plan, think variance or outcome monitoring. Then we have project leadership, governance, and structures. Team roles is responsibilities within the project team, leader, sponsor, contributors. Team management is coordinating work and motivating members. And work breakdown structure, or WBS, breaks projects into smaller, manageable tasks. SHRM wants you to understand how HR structures larger projects and know the value of defining roles and accountability up front. So for example, creating a WBS for a cross-state FMLA SOP rollout, or assigning a project champion for a new performance review system. So on the test, if the scenario involves confusion or missed tasks, WBS or governance may be the issue. Next, we have systems thinking and organizational system components. So we have system thinking, seeing the organization as interconnected parts. Interdependence, one change affects many parts. Feedback loops, using feedback to refine and improve. And differentiation of units is recognizing different departments have different goals and cultures. So you are expected to think holistically and recognize ripple effects. You want to identify points of resistance or misalignment. So for example, changing HRIS software affects IT, payroll, and employee workflows. A lack of feedback mechanism stalls culture change efforts. So, test tip, look for questions that test your ability to see the bigger picture, especially if multiple departments are mentioned. And the last area we're going to look at under the HR strategy is strategic planning analysis frameworks. So we've got PESTLE, which analyzes external factors. And that stands for political, economic, social, tech, legal, and environmental. Then we have the SWOT analysis, and that goes over strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Keep in mind, SWOT is both internal and external. And then industry and location-specific analysis are tailoring strategies based on local business conditions. You have scenario planning, what if, planning for best or worst case scenarios. You have growth share matrix, which helps allocate resources by evaluating market growth and share. Real time is responsive, ongoing, strategic thinking versus annual planning, for example. And then blue ocean is finding untapped markets or uncontested space. So you need to know when to apply each framework and understand the internal versus external analysis tools. For example, using PESTLE before entering a new geographic market. Blue ocean, maybe an HR team proposes new flexible job types, no competitor offers, for example. And test tip, if a question asks about adapting to external change, go PESTLE or scenario planning. For resource prioritization, think growth share matrix. Now that we've looked at how HR sets strategic direction, let's move into how we attract the right people to carry it out, starting with talent acquisition. Okay, key concepts of talent acquisition. So, job analysis and identification of job requirements. We've got task inventory analysis, and that breaks down the job into specific tasks and responsibilities. We have the critical incident technique, and that identifies key behaviors that lead success or failure in a role. Then we have position analysis questionnaire, or PAQ, and that is a standardized tool that evaluates work behaviors and required attributes across roles. So what SHRM wants? SHRM wants you to understand how to accurately define job requirements before sourcing begins, and recognize how job analysis supports selection, compensation, training, and performance management. So for example, you're hiring a front desk lead, you use critical incident technique to identify standout customer service scenarios. Or you launch a task inventory analysis to update the duties in outdated job descriptions. So if the question is about identifying what's actually required for a role, you're in job analysis territory. If it includes surveys or standardization, PAQ is likely the answer. Next area I want to look at is job offer negotiations. There's variable job share, and that is a flexible arrangement where two or more people share the duties of a single full-time role with fluctuating hours. So SHRM wants you to understand the elements that may be negotiated: salary, benefits, schedule, relocation, remote work, and know how to support organizational equity while remaining flexible with candidate needs. For example, a candidate requests to work remotely 2 days per week. You balance that request with internal policies and manager approval. Or you have two part-time employees propose a variable job share to cover an open role with alternating days. So look for hints about flexibility, retention, or negotiations with high-value candidates. Okay, so we've covered how we identify talent and structure. Now let's talk about keeping them. So up next is employee engagement and retention. Here are some of the key concepts I want to cover today. We're going to get into job design principles and techniques. So for example, we have job enrichment, and that is increasing the depth of a job by adding responsibility that offers autonomy, variety, and personal growth. Job enlargement, on the other hand, increases the number of tasks in a job to reduce monotony. So that is a horizontal expansion. Job rotation is moving employees between jobs to broaden experience and skill. And then work simplification is breaking tasks into simple, repeatable actions to improve efficiency. SHRM wants you to understand which design technique is appropriate for different roles or challenges. For example, burnout versus boredom, and know how design impacts motivation and engagement. So, for example, a front desk agent is rotated into group reservations once a week to build cross-functional knowledge, or job rotation. Or a housekeeping role is simplified by removing non-essential reporting tasks. That would be a work simplification. So, on the test, focus on the intent behind the technique. Autonomy equals enrichment. boredom equals enlargement, skill variety equals rotation. The next area I want to focus on is employee retention concepts and best practices. So we have realistic job previews, or RJPs, which is transparent communication about job expectations before the hire. Then suggestion mechanisms are systems for collecting and responding to employee ideas or feedback. Identifying causes of turnover, that's the use of exit interviews, data analysis, engagement surveys, etc. Predictive attrition analysis is data-driven modeling to anticipate who may leave and why. And personalized onboarding is tailoring orientation and training to an individual's need and style. SHRM wants you to know the difference between proactive versus reactive retention. And they want you to understand that data plus personalization leads to better retention outcomes. So for example, a hotel creates RJPs via videos that show real-life shift scenarios to reduce new hire surprise. Or your HRIS flags employees at high risk of turnover based on trends like absenteeism and lack of growth opportunities, which would be predictive attrition. So when in doubt, opt for proactive and personalized strategies. SHRM values solutions that are both human and data informed. Okay, so engagement is just the beginning. Let's shift into how we actually develop talent from within, and that is learning and development. Okay, so the areas I want to focus on. Let's start with learning and development program design and implementation. This is a structured process for creating training and development programs that align with organizational goals and employee needs. SHRM is looking for familiarity with instructional design models and how to apply them, and the ability to link learning and development with strategic goals and evaluate effectiveness. So key models would be ADDIE: analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. There's the successive approximation model, or SAM, which is an iterative, agile-style alternative to ADDIE. Action mapping, which focuses on tasks and behaviors needed for performance. And Bloom's taxonomy categorizes learning objectives by complexity. So we remember, then we evaluate, then we create. So for example, you use ADDIE to roll out a new customer service training across multiple properties with formal evaluation after 30 days. Or a new learning and development manager maps training to Bloom's taxonomy, ensuring each level of learning, for example, comprehension to application, is addressed. So know when to use each model. ADDIE is your safe bet unless the question emphasizes flexibility or speed. You would want to go with SAM. Bloom equals cognitive depth. So if the question references complexity of knowledge or assessment design, think Bloom. The next area I want to focus on is adult learning theories. These are principles and models that explain how adults learn, helping HR professionals tailor training effectively. SHRM is looking for an understanding of different learning styles and formats, and the ability to apply adult learning theory to maximize retention and application of skills. So some key models: learning everywhere, which is continuous learning culture across settings. Learning styles, for example, visual, auditory, kinesthetic preferences. And then the 7-20-10 model: 70% on the job, 20% social learning, and 10% formal instruction. So for example, you offer job shadowing, 70%, and peer coaching, 20%, after a classroom orientation, 10%, for new team leads. That would be the 70-20-10 model. Or a training model includes video, interactive activities, and hands-on practice to address all learning styles. So if a question involves practical skill development, go 70-20-10. For diverse teams or engagement issues, highlight multi-model delivery, which is the different learning styles. And then when in doubt, prioritize real-world application over theory. So from building the skills of today to rewarding the work of tomorrow, next up is total rewards. Okay, so when it comes to total rewards, here are some key concepts that I want to break down. Approaches to gathering compensation and benefits market data. So these are methods for understanding external pay practices so you can remain competitive. So we have the remuneration survey, which is a structured tool to compare salaries and benefits across similar jobs. And then labor market trends, which are economic shifts, cost of living, industry demands, and skill shortages affecting pay. So for example, you use a local hotel survey to adjust your front desk wage range to stay competitive with other properties. Questions may ask how to determine a new role's pay. Go with benchmarking, surveys, or labor market data. The other area I want to look at is compensation and labor market data interpretation. So we have comparable worth, which is pay equity across roles of equal value, even if job content differs. Benchmarking, which is comparing roles against similar jobs externally. Internal alignment, which is ensuring fairness between roles in your org. And then external competitiveness, which is matching or exceeding market rates to attract talent. So for example, you benchmark housekeeping wages to market, but adjust internally to prevent wage compression with supervisors. So when SHRM asks about equity or market alignment, you want to go with a combination of internal and external methods. Then we have pay practices and issues. So some key terms are base pay, which is setting salary or hourly rate. Variable pay, which is bonuses, incentives, profit sharing. Pay compression, which is little difference between tenured and new employee wages, which creates an issue. Pay equity, which is fair pay regardless of protected class. Pay transparency, which is openness about how pay decisions are made. And you may also have states like California that have pay transparency laws, and that means that you need to include the hourly rates in job requisitions. If SHRM asks how to address turnover, inequity, or morale issues, always consider compression, transparency, and equity. Then, last but not least, I want to focus on total rewards, metrics, and benchmarks. So, insurance participation rates are the percentage of employees enrolled in plans. So, low rates may signal affordability issues, for example. And then compa ratio is pay compared to market midpoint. So, the formula is employee salary divided by market midpoint. If it is less than 1, then they are underpaid. If it is greater than 1, then they are above market. So a compa ratio of 0.85 suggests room for adjustment or a justification to retain the employee. So that's total rewards from data gathering to pay equity to compa ratios. It's a core part of creating a workplace that people want to stay in. So that wraps up the people knowledge domain. From strategy and hiring to training, rewards, and retention, this area covers the full employee life cycle, and SHRM loves testing your real-world application of these ideas. So tomorrow, we're going to dive into the organization domain, where we'll focus on structure, effectiveness, and managing the workplace. So don't forget to take your full-length practice test this week and reflect on how your own HR approaches align with these SHRM principles, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!